Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. I am Jacob Milham, joined per usual by the one and only Jeremy Greco. Jeremy, you have the dancing eyebrows on this Wednesday evening. How we feeling?
What if there was more than one of me?
I don't know. I don't
know either. I don't think anyone knows. I don't think anyone can know. And I don't think anyone wants to know.
Well, now you're causing internal crises, Jeremy, and we're only a minute into the episode, man. What are we doing?
I mean, we're waiting. Some would say we're waiting for trades and free agents, but I'm waiting for Godot.
Godot?
It's a famous play.
Okay.
Waiting for Godot. It's a show about two guys waiting for a guy named Godot who never shows up.
That's pretty anticlimactic.
Yeah. It's a weird show.
It certainly sounds like it. If you want some more weird content in your life, you go check out royalsreview.com because the off season, as you can tell, is kind of a weird time for all baseball fans out there. Baseball writers are no different.
You asked me, is there anything else I wanted to add? And I just realized Matthew LaMar had a really interesting article today that we could discuss.
Yeah, I think we should definitely touch on that. We do have a few other things to talk about today, including the Hall of Fame ballot and the AL Manager of the Year results coming out. But we do want to start off today with the transactions. We finally had some action on the transaction wire from the Kansas City Royals, and it is them adding 3 of the 5 prospects that we spoke about on the episode earlier this week. If you want to go back and hear that discussion, you can. But the Royals made it final. They added pitchers Noah Cameron, Wander Avila, and Eric Cerantola. So 3 out of the 5 top 30 prospects that were Rule 5 eligible, leaving Tyson Guerrero and Chandler Champlain unprotected.
Was it who was the third guy you had? Because I said it was going to be Avila and Cameron,
yeah.
And you said, was it Cerantola or did you say Champlain?
I believe I said Champlain.
Okay. Interesting that he didn't get added. I know some people thought he should have been added, including yourself.
Yeah.
And I was reminded that he was one of the guys that the Royals got back in the Andrew Benintendi trade, which looks to have been a complete bust at this point.
Yeah, complete bust on both ends.
Neither Beck Way nor Chandler Champlain. And I don't even remember who the third guy was in that deal.
Should have been TJ Sikkema, I think.
Yeah, Sikkema. Is he still even on the roster?
I don't think so.
And the other 2 don't look like they're likely to make the big leagues anytime soon, if ever. Sikkema.
Well,
he's in the Cincinnati Reds organization now. Yeah, did the Royals, let me see if I can figure out if he got traded or if he was a minor league free agent or what the heck happened.
Nah, I'm sure he was a minor league free agent. I think that's how his time in Kansas City ended. But all in all, the Kansas City Royals 40-man roster now sits at 37 players. So they are one of the few organizations out there as of today that have kind of ample roster room to play around with heading into the offseason. They could look at the Rule 5 draft group, see if there's any players that interest them. I know we spoke about Matt Sauer briefly on last podcast. That's kind of what they saw in 2024, saying, hey, let's give this guy a shot, see what happens. Didn't work out. It happens most of the time with Rule 5 guys, but you can't know unless you try. So right now, the Royals didn't want to roll the dice on leaving Cameron, Avila, and Cerantola out there. Cameron was a no-brainer.
Yeah,
he was...
Really, Avila was too, I think, at this point.
I think so as well. Avila's kind of the first... He's the leading edge of the international wave since the Royals invested a little bit more resources into that.
He was so good with
Yeah.
such really good metrics in the
He was.
AFL. Like that slider was just, you can't let somebody see that slider and then not protect him.
Exactly. And it's kind of the similar thing with Cerantola. I mean, he's got the stuff. He really, really does. You go watch him. He has the pitching arsenal. It's just the control at the end of the day. So hopefully that gets polished up a little bit. but they're just on the 40-man roster. They're not opening day locks or anything like that. This is all part of the roster games that happen at the major league level. I think maybe Cameron and Sarantola might be names to watch in spring.
Cameron will be competing for a rotation spot.
Yeah.
Don't think he'll win it, but I do think we'll see him start for the Royals in 2025.
I definitely agree with you there. And being on the 40-man roster is the biggest hurdle sometimes for these players. Once you have that flexibility, you can go up and down, you're more likely to get shot.
Evan Sisk would 100% have pitched for the Royals at some point last year had he been on the 40-man roster.
Correct.
He wasn't. They didn't want to add him because then somebody else has to come off or whatever. So it didn't happen. He's on the 40-man roster this year. We'll also see him sometime in 2025.
Exactly.
The Royals obviously saw enough in him that they were unwilling to let him go as a minor league free agent the way that they did TJ Sikkema.
Sarantola is going to be an interesting one. MLB does have his ETA as 2025. I don't think he's a lock for that, though. Just he really has to polish up the walks. That has been his. If you go look at his game log, I didn't watch every single outing he had for the Storm Chasers, but if you go, I watched some of his best, some of his worst. It always comes down to the control. Always. Every single time. The fastball is there, the curveball is there, and the slider, much like Avila's, the slider has promise.
Yeah.
None of those pitches will play at the major league level if you can't locate the pitch in the strike zone.
Yeah, the only thing going for him is that he does strike out a lot of guys. I think I saw someone compare him to Josh Staumont with not quite as much heat on his fastball. Obviously, Staumont was a curveball guy, not a slider guy. So he's been shifting to the bullpen a lot since he hit high A 2023. He's been mostly a reliever.
Right.
So you can get away sometimes with a few more walks as a reliever if you're still striking guys out. And he's maintained a consistent strikeout rate from 2023 to 2024, even moving up a level. So there's stuff there. There's there's promise there. There's reasons to be like, man, if you let this guy go with his 12 and a half strikeouts per 9, someone's going to draft him in their Rule 5 and hide him in the back of their bullpen or try to.
And just see what he can do you put him in the low leverage spots and see what he could do in those instances.
And again, one of my favorite metrics for looking at minor leagues is age per level. 24-year-old in AAA last year. It's not Bobby Witt, but that's probably about where you want to be a lot of times. 22, 23 would be better, but 24 is, it's really when you start looking at a 26, 27, 28-year-old in AAA, you're like, this doesn't matter.
Precisely. Moving on to some other Royals-related news, we finally got the results for the AL Manager of the Year race. And yes, unfortunately, manager Matt Quatraro came up short. He finished second behind the Cleveland Guardians' Stephen Vogt. Jeremy, I think we discussed this briefly. I think we were kind of prepared for a second place finish. But him only getting 2 first place votes?
Yeah.
Only 2?
He got left off 3 ballots entirely.
Yeah. What are we doing?
I do not get it. I'm sorry. Stephen Vogt was not that good of a manager. He got a lot out of his bullpen, but he did nothing like Quatraro had to do to make his team succeed. It just, the lineup built itself in Cleveland.
It did. Yep, it did. So yeah,
he had Emmanuel Clase in his bullpen to help him succeed. Matt Quatraro did not have an Emmanuel Clase in his bullpen.
He had
a Lucas Urseg,
yeah,
but not for the whole season.
No, not at all. Not at all. I guess 30-win turnarounds aren't what they used to be. Just kind of chalk it up to that, right?
Whatever.
Yeah. So all in all, the American League Central just dominated that race. Tigers manager AJ Hinch came in third. So that was kind of fun to see the American League Central was getting rightfully dogged on heading into 2024. And now they looked like one of the better divisions, more well-rounded divisions in all of baseball, as long as you ignore those pesky Chicago White Sox, that is. So I'm feeling good about Quatraro heading into 2025. I certainly hope that stuff like this quells the Q's a bad manager and he makes too many errors. I hope that discourse ends. We just move on and focus on baseball. That's all I want. That's all I want. But it all comes down to if he has the talent on the field to succeed in 2025, right, Jeremy?
Yes. Well, I mean, he's already shown us that. Okay, let me start over. Ned Yost, I loved as a manager because I think the most important thing a manager does is keep is morale stuff, is personality stuff. It's keeping the team all headed in the same direction, not at each other's throats, right? And Ned Yost was great at that stuff. Matt Quatraro is also good at that stuff. Ned Yost managing the 2024 Royals would not have gotten that team to the playoffs.
No, absolutely
because that team was talented enough to make the playoffs, but it needed a tactical hand, someone who was watching the advanced statistics and knew what was happening in a way that Ned Yost never really showed us he was capable of. So Matt Quatraro he's the best manager that we've seen as Royals fans since at least my Royals fandom started in '98. So this is good stuff, and I'm very excited to have him. And anyone who complains about Matt Quatraro is not paying attention.
I couldn't agree more. But going back to that talent thing, you brought up what
talent, that right? Yes. So yes, talent will be important in 2025, but Matt Quatraro makes the talent go further than it might otherwise.
Correct. He gets the most out of it.
I knew I was missing the point by the time I got to the end of that.
Oh, no, I was just trying to bring in Matthew's article from earlier today where, listen, so usually we have this SB Nation off-season simulation. It's where you get all the writers from every team and you play out the off-season. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a fun exercise. It's very time-consuming. It's a lot of work, but it's very, very fun. So for now, taking a little break from that, Matt still put out some of his favorite moves that he would make for the Royals. And I wouldn't say there is consensus support for his moves, but I think he has sound reasoning behind each one of his moves, Jeremy. Do you mind running down the moves that he suggested real quick?
So the first move he wants to make is he wants to bring in, let me pull up this article again to make sure I've got all this straight. He wanted to sign Ha-Seong Kim to play third base. Kim has played third base in his career. He's primarily been a second baseman lately. He does have, over his last 2 years, a 342 OBP and 60 stolen bases. That's what the Royals are looking for there, is some speed and some OBP at the top of their lineup. The median crowdsource figure he cites here at Fangraphs is 4 years for $73.5 million. Which is a lot for Ha-Seong Kim, I think.
Yeah.
But they could probably pull that off, especially if they're not really adding a lot other than that through free agency, which is Matthew LaMar shows 3 moves here, and this is the big free agent splash of the 3. And we talked about Kim, I think, some when we were talking about free agent infielders, and I still have an issue with the fact that he's outperformed his ex-WOBA 3 of the past 4 years. He does not hit the ball hard.
No, he does not.
And so and he doesn't take a lot of walks. I take that back. Sorry, he does take his walks. I was confusing him with someone else.
Oh, okay.
So he does take walks, but he doesn't hit the ball hard, and he's entering his 30s. So I wonder, how long will this be able to last? You sign him, I feel like you might be getting an Omar Infante situation where he's just about to completely fall off a cliff.
Yeah, there is some concern there, Jeremy, I will say, and especially Like he missed the Padres postseason run with season-ending shoulder surgery. He tore his labrum in his right shoulder, and wondering like, hey, how is that going to affect his 2025 availability? How is that going to affect, him throwing from third base? Even, these are all things that you have to think about. And if you want to pay a guy nearly $20 million a year, I don't know. Like that's a steep price for him.
If you get him for 3 years 40, I would do that.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm happy with that.
But 4 years almost 80 is
much.
That is really locking yourself to this guy in a way that I don't feel comfortable with.
Fully agree.
So his second move is to trade Brady Singer. We've talked about trading him for an infielder, a Nico Horner or a Jonathan India. He wants to trade him for an outfielder, which is interesting because I haven't really thought about who's out there on the trade market as far as outfielders go. So Matt dropped 3 names here: Luke Raley of the Seattle Mariners, Lars Nootbaar of the Cardinals, and Jake McCarthy of the Diamondbacks.
Okay.
I have some thoughts about those guys, but do you have any thoughts about those 3 guys before I go into my spiel?
I think Nootbaar would be the most interesting addition out of that field. Frankly, I don't know too much about Luke Raley. I know that he is a solid ball player. McCarthy does fit that speedster kind of. He can play all of the outfield positions. He does fit that versatility. Nootbaar is a lefty, still in pre-arbitration, so I don't know if Singer would get it done for Nootbaar, especially the guy has 7.8 FR across his career. He's been very good for the St. Louis Cardinals. The Royals are going to have to give up some stuff to get some stuff there. Like, all in all, I would like
to say Singer and Garcia for Nootbaar.
Maybe, but that's probably what would need to happen. I'd be like, okay, this is
to sit down with baseball trade values.
And if let's say they announce that trade the day after they sign like a solid opening day third baseman, then I'm fine with that. Then I'm fine with the move, and you just keep it moving and you improve the outfield.
So my takeaways from that are Luke Raley is the best hitter out of the bunch, and it's not really all that close. But my problems are he doesn't take a ton of walks. He's not a good defender, and he's entering his 30s.
Yeah,
I do not want to trade a 28-year-old starting pitcher of at least above average quality for a 30-year-old outfielder who can't defend.
Yeah. Agreed.
And my problem with Jake McCarthy is he does not have power. He got no power.
No, nothing.
Good defender. Actually, he rates below average as a defender.
Really?
He's better than either of the other two by the Fangraphs defense stat. Mm-hmm. But he's a negative defender overall. Good base runner. He hits for a high average, doesn't strike out a ton, and he walks enough.
Mm-hmm.
But not as much as I'd want for a guy who has no power. And then Lars Nootbaar comes in at, I think, 26 years old. McCarthy's also 26. 28 years old. Both of them will be next year.
Okay.
So same age, and Nootbaar walks a ton. He's got good power, though not. I mean, he's got okay power. He's got 26 home runs over his last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So that's fine. It's not amazing power, but he hits a fair amount of doubles, I believe. And he gets on base a lot. I don't know. Honestly, Raley still might be the better option, but then I want something in addition to Raley for Singer because of that 30-year-old outfielder who can't defend.
Yeah.
Raley has a 129 WRC plus over the last 2 years. He's a very good hitter. He doesn't walk much. He strikes out quite a bit, but he hits the ball hard. And even with his not great walk rate, he had a 326 OBP over the last 2 seasons.
That's solid.
Yeah, I mean, you put that in the middle of your lineup when your leadoff hitter has been below 300, so you get like a 340 guy to lead off, and then you add a 320 guy. in your like 4 or 5, 6 slot, 4 or 5. He's not going to bat sixth. Like you drastically improved your team OBP at that point, and he brings good power too. So any of those 3 guys can make sense for the right deal.
Yes.
I do not think I would do Singer straight up for McCarthy or Raley, but I would, if they were the main piece of a trade for Singer, that would be okay.
Yeah. Fully agree with that. And I don't know, I think Nootbaar would be the most impactful choice out of that, because he's the guy that, hey, I'm plugging him right at the top of the lineup. He's got double-digit walk rates across his MLB career. That has been a consistent part of his game, so I really, really like that. And
depending on who you've signed for third base, Nootbaar can slot into that third spot.
Yeah.
And then Vinny can bat fifth. And then you're not relying on Vinny quite so much, but you're like, hey, if we get to Vinny, we still got something here.
Exactly. What was that third move that Matt detailed?
And then the third move is sign a bounce back starting pitcher. So a lot of he points out, as we have discussed many, many times, that a lot of the Royals 2024 improvement came from Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha.
Yep.
And the ways that the Royals were able to improve both of those guys. Both of them were solid signings to begin with, but the Royals got more out of them than I think anyone expected outside of the organization.
For sure.
And then so he points out there's a few guys that they could look at. Shane Bieber, former Guardians ace, coming off an injury, wouldn't be available at the start of the year, but would come back in the middle of the year. So he's a bounce back guy. Walker Buehler of World Series success, but who's been injured at times and has been hurt. Has been injured and has been hurt. Yeah, good words. Has injured and he's struggled with ineffectiveness sometimes.
Yeah.
And then Jose Quintana, who's really been looking kind of up and down since he left the White Sox.
Yeah.
Quintana feels like a guy the Royals could really sink their coaching staff teeth into and resolve a lot of his issues. But any of those 3 guys, I think for the money they're likely to get, sounds like a really exciting signing, and even to replace Brady Singer. And you're not going to spend, again, a lot of money on any of those 3.
Right. And we've spoken a lot in this podcast about one factor that made the 2024 Royals so successful is they were extremely healthy. Okay, so I get it, because my gut reaction when I saw this, I was like, come on, like we don't need a starting pitcher. Like that's not really a high need. But
we do if we trade Singer.
Right, which is very, very true. But like where would the 24 Royals have been if Wacha's injury lasted a lot longer, or
had Jonathan Bolin starting?
Correct. Exactly. So if you want to roll those dice, if you want to count on Chris Bubic making a seamless transition back to the rotation,
I'm willing to roll those. I'll bet on that. Let's go.
I will bet on it too. But then you see stuff that happened.
The Royals are still in a better position this year, even right now, than they were last year, because they've got Noah Cameron and Wright. I forgot his first name.
Kyle Wright.
I kept wanting to say David, and I'm like, that's the wrong Wright.
You said Jamie last podcast.
Yeah. So Kyle Wright, and Bubic is also now a possibility where he was not even a possibility last year.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got more guys who can step in case of injury, but you want those guys to stay. Like Bubic or Marsh in your 5th spot, great. You do not want to have to rely on Wright as a starter at the beginning of the year. Probably you do not want to have to rely on both Bubic and Marsh. You don't want to have to rely on Cameron. Now, if Cameron is like, hey, I am here, I am ready, and he wins that spot, great, cool. Then Bubic and Marsh both are in the bullpen. That's fine. That's fine, but you don't want to count on it. It goes back to this idea that I keep pitching all offseason. Let's put guys in a position where if they do succeed, if they do break out, we're ready to allow that to happen. We haven't traded them away. We haven't cut them off. But let's not count on the breakouts. Let's not say, well, we're not going to be successful unless they break out.
Right. I think that's a solid way of looking at it. And investing in a lottery ticket starting pitcher, not just one that has major league talent, but one that has a lengthy track record of production and just needs a little bit more time to get ready for 2025 or a little less pressure on them. That's where you invest in these starting pitchers that Matt listed out. I like those options. I do. I'm sure that there are more out there. And the Kansas City Royals did take some quote unquote chances on guys like this in 2024. Sam Long is an instance of it. Tyler Duffy is an instance of it. Dilson Lament is another former starting pitcher that the Royals had in their organization for a while, ready to go in case of emergency. We just never saw him at the major league level because didn't really need him, which was a good problem to have. So those are Matt's 3 moves. He asks at the end of the article, what do you think? So go let him know what you think on royalsreview.com. The article is titled 3 Things the Royals Need to Do This Offseason. Matthew LaMar's offseason blueprint. So go check that out. Jeremy, one of the bigger things from this past week was Hall of Fame ballot dropping.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a couple of months before we know the final results. Not too many former Kansas City Royals on this iteration. Carlos Beltran returns for his 3rd year on the ballot, and then World Series champion Ben Zobrist also appears for his 1st year on the ballot. But those aren't the headline guys right now. I got a lot of stuff I can say about Beltran. I got some stuff I can say about Zobrist, but there's one guy who's in his 1st year on the ballot that you want to talk about. So let's hear it.
Yeah. So let me just real quick, let me give you my, if I had a ballot.
Okay. Let's hear it. Yeah.
So Billy Wagner, Andrew Jones, Carlos Beltran, Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez. That's 5. Mark Burley. Let's see. Felix Hernandez, that's 7. CC Sabathia, Ichiro Suzuki, that's 9. I would probably pick a 10th out of this list somewhere, but those 9 I don't even have to think about. They're all on my ballot, including the guy that you were mentioning there, Ichiro Suzuki, who I'm just going to I'm going to volley this right back at you and say, you told me you don't think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
No, I did not say that.
That's what I heard.
No, I don't think Ichiro Suzuki should be a unanimous Hall of Fame.
Okay.
I don't think he should be a unanimous Hall of Fame.
Why?
And yeah, all right, fine. I'm on the defense here. I'm on my heels right now.
Why should some people vote really for him, but not others?
I don't think people will vote. I don't think some people will vote for him. One, because of recency. Ichiro was like, he struggled later on in his career. He struggled mightily later on in his
45?
career. Yes. Correct.
Yeah. At 45, he wasn't as good.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't as good. Listen, the guy chose to keep on playing. All right. He wasn't, he had 2 seasons where he was league average after his age 36 season, that is.
When most people have retired, by the way.
Correct. I think he should absolutely be in the Hall of Fame. I do think that some of his statistics lag behind his peers, but that is because he spent a good chunk of his playing career abroad. Okay, he absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame.
I don't know if abroad is the correct term for playing in his home country that just isn't our home country.
Correct. Well, it's abroad for us, right?
I mean, abroad means away from your home country, I think. So really, he spent, when he played in the MLB, he was playing abroad.
Okay, you know what? That does make sense.
Did I just say the MLB? I'm sorry. I will endeavor to not do that again.
All in all, if I had to bet, I would bet that he is going to be a 1st-year Hall of Famer. And he had a great impact on the game. Great, amazing impact on the game. I just don't know if he should be unanimous. Guy who made his major league debut at age 27 and ended his career with 3,000 hits and a 311 batting average. A career 104 WRC plus hitter, despite the fact that, as you noted, after age 36, he was not the same guy, and he played until he was 45. Hey, if you look at his entire career, okay, because we talked about WRC plus, OPS plus is another stat that we like to look at. OPS plus 107 across his entire career. I mean, he's marginally better than league average across his career. Someone is going to look at that and say, like, I don't know. Maybe I just want to stir the pot.
So all right. I went and I just grabbed his first 10 years.
All right. Yep.
When he was aged from 27 to 36.
Oh boy. Yep. All of his all-star seasons.
Right. 2,000 of his hits came in those first 10 years.
Yes.
2,244 to be exact. Interestingly, I guess I never realized this. He never was really a guy who walked that much. He had a career 6.0% walk rate. 6.2 over that 10-year span. 10.1% strikeout rate, so he almost never struck out either.
Right.
115 WRC plus over that span. So you got to remember the era he was playing in, the hitting was maybe not as impressive as it seems.
Correct.
That said, he had 53.2 WAR.
Yes, he did.
Because
he was a very valuable player.
The dude was not just a hitter; he was a fielder and a base runner. The dude
that he was.
He looked awkward throwing in right field, but he would gun you down, and he was going to take a base whenever he wanted. He also had a lot of bunt hits. He could get on, so he didn't walk, but if he needed to get on base, he could bunt his way on, no problem. The guy was just unreal for a lot of reasons beyond his hitting. Everyone remembers him for his hitting, but really he was an all-around player.
Yes, he really, really was. If you go and you look at his 7-year peak, though, which is another, if you go pull a Baseball Reference, I get it. This is all numbers and stuff like that. But these are things that voters look at, right? And his 7-year peak for WAR rates 5th out of guys on the ballot this year, behind, Chase Utley and Andrew Jones. He's a very good player who should be in the Hall of Fame. He is. I'm just not saying I don't think he should be a unanimous Hall of Fame.
I do not care if someone is unanimous or not. That doesn't mean anything to me.
Fair enough. Hey, because since I've just been an Ichiro hater, I just want to be a Carlos Beltran hater for a little bit, I guess.
All right.
But let's go and talk about the former Royals on the list. So I don't know. I think Ben Zobrist is going to be
he's going to be lucky if he gets a single vote.
Yeah, I think he's going to fall off the ballot. You have to get 5% of votes each year, and if you get less than that, you fall off the ballot. That's just how it goes. Ben Zobrist, great career. Nothing to be ashamed of about that career. 2-time World Series champion in back-to-back years, no doubt. Had a great career with the Tampa Bay Rays. I think I'd easily forget about how good he was for the Rays during that period. And he ended his time with the Cubs. It was good. Keep it moving. Cash your paychecks and enjoy being an MLB retiree. But yeah, I think he falls in the Hall of Very Good, not Hall of Fame.
Not even sure he's in the Hall of Very Good, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Yeah, really?
He was an all-star. He was a good player, but he doesn't measure up against the all-timers. People are not going to remember Ben Zobrist 10 years from now.
No, I don't think I don't think that they will, and that's because a lot of his value, I would say, did fall in the non-sexy parts of baseball. He was a valuable fielder. He was a versatile utility man. Stuff like that. We all want hits.
He was a good player that you wanted on your team, but he was not the guy that you ever built your team around.
There you go. I like that. I like that way of looking at it. Meanwhile, though, Carlos Beltran was a guy that you could build your team around. He showed it during his Kansas City Royals tenure, and I get it. It didn't end the way we wanted, and frankly, he had his career peak after he left Kauffman Stadium. There's no doubt about it. Didn't have to. But
have you heard that story about the 1 million?
Yeah, I have. I still can't believe
it's on
that.
Royals Review. Y'all should read it if you're unfamiliar with.
You should.
How cheap David Glass was.
It'll really rile you up on David Glass. I'll say that. Right now, I don't think Beltran's going to get in the Hall of Fame this year. I think he's going to gain votes again. But before I go into why I don't think he's going to get in the Hall of Fame, I want to hear what you think about Beltran in the Hall of Fame.
This is my thing, is I'm not here to tell you how other people are going to vote, because other people are stupid and I don't have all their answers, okay? I'm just telling you he is a Hall of Famer. That's all I can tell you. 700 hits, 135 home runs, 312 stolen bases. I believe the home run stolen base combination is rare among career major leaguers. Like most guys don't get that high in both stats.
Correct. He is fit. He was the fifth guy to get to, I think it was 400 home runs and 300 stolen bases.
So 5 guys all time did that.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame. We talked about Ichiro. We both think he's a Hall of Famer. Beltran has 10 more FWAR than he does. So what do you want me to say? The guy was really, really good.
He was. Now I'm going to tell you why he's fighting for his life on the Hall of Fame ballot, though. I know you don't.
Voting for Manny Ramirez and Alex Rodriguez. You think Carlos Beltran's going to keep me from voting for him?
Heck no. So, if you've been living under a rock for nearly the past decade or so, Carlos Beltran kind of bounced around the league at the end of his career, just that veteran journeyman slugger sort of thing. Yep, exactly. And arguably his worst season was his last, but he won a World Series ring with the Houston Astros back in 2017. And there's a lot of things you could say about that Astros team. The fact of the matter is, if you go, I've reviewed it on this podcast, the book Winning Fixes Everything. I reviewed it on this podcast. That book changed my mindset on Carlos Beltran completely. It really did.
Remind me, how did it change your, where were you and where are you now? Remind me.
Drellick described him, I double-checked this last night. Drellick described him as, quote, the godfather of the sign stealing system.
You didn't know he was the mastermind of that whole thing before you read the book?
No, I didn't know that.
I thought that was common knowledge.
No, I personally didn't know that. So I was just like, oh, he's a veteran. He's been around a while. He wouldn't let that happen, would he?
Yeah, it was his thing.
It was his thing.
Yeah.
So, and
I don't care.
We've talked about cheating in baseball, or pushing the boundaries of the rules, as some would like to say, is prevalent in baseball. It's kind of how you win in the margins, is finding where the margins actually are. But they got caught doing it.
So are you arguing that if they hadn't been caught, it would have been better?
Yeah, I think it would have been better for his Hall of Fame.
Well, for his Hall of Fame case, but better morally?
No, not better morally.
Okay.
It would have been better for his Hall of Fame case.
Because you're like, but he got caught. I'm like, okay. So you're still arguing, is he going to be voted in, not should he be voted in?
Correct. His statistics, his career, his resume, few can touch it on the ballot this year. He has a Hall of Fame resume. I just don't know if writers are still trying to move past what he did. And I don't know if they will. He gained nearly 11% in voting last year from his first year to his second year. I think he could make similar gains this year, but even then that would put him short of the 75% threshold. So I don't think he gets in this year. I do think that he makes gains at least, especially he's still active in the league. He's still executive with the New York Mets. So I like his chances overall. I just don't like him this year.
There's only one guy who can't move on to next year if he doesn't win this year. Billy Wagner, who should already be in.
Should be, yeah.
Trevor Hoffman's in. Mariano Rivera is in.
You're right.
Billy Wagner was a force, man.
He was something different, wasn't he? I couldn't imagine facing him. We talked about these guys like Lucas Herceg and Emmanuel Clase, and Billy Wagner was that guy. He was that dude,
and he was doing that when no one was throwing 100.
Right. So I definitely think he should get in. I mean, he was on the cusp last year. This is his last year. He has to get to 75%. He got to nearly 74 last year. I think he will as well.
So I gave you my 9 guys who I would vote for, and I told you I would probably pick a 10th, but somewhere between Utley, Abreu, Rollins, Pettit, probably is somewhere in those 4. Maybe Pedroia. I might look at Pedroia.
Yeah.
As my 10th guy.
Okay.
So who do we think will get in?
I think Ichiro's a lock.
Okay.
I think CC Sabathia has a good chance. Okay. I think he will get in. I don't think Pettit gets in. let's see here.
Not this year, anyway.
No, Andrew Jones is a toss-up. His 8th year, he got 61.6% last year. I think Wagner gets in. I think a lot of first ballot guys fall off.
Yeah, they usually do.
Yeah, I think like an abnormal amount do. Like I think because I couldn't see anyone voting for Fernando Rodney or Ian Kinsler, stuff like that.
No, I think Sabathia, Suzuki, and Pedroia and Felix Hernandez are the only ones who make it to a second year if they don't get in.
Yeah. Yeah, at the end, I think this is going to be a small Hall of Fame class.
This year, you think Ichiro, Sabathia, Wagner.
Yeah. That's what I think right now.
I think this year, it's Ichiro and Wagner.
Okay.
And I think that's it. I think those are the only two in this year.
All right. It's going to be
I think Andrew Jones gets in his 10th year.
Yeah. It's not this year. Next year.
Which is not this year. I think Felix Hernandez eventually gets in. I think Dustin Pedroia eventually gets in. I think CC Sabathia eventually gets in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think those two are the only ones who get in this year. Yep. I do not think Andy Pettit or Mark Burley ever get in. I do not think Alex Rodriguez or Manny Ramirez ever get in. Beltran will eventually get in.
Yes, he will. That he will. So yeah, this is going to be a fun exercise. I know we don't have the results until I think January 21st. Like it's a while. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep you up to date on RoyalsReview.com for all the Royals related results at least. And I'm sure that we will, revisit our ballot right before the results come out. Jeremy, anything else to add before we get on out of here, friend?
I feel like I thought of one more thing I wanted to talk about. I can't remember what it was. You sent me that link about the public subsidies for the stadiums.
Yes.
And I guess just throw that out there. Mark Normandin.
Normandin. Yep.
Normandin has a newsletter. Y'all should check it out. Talking about how, these counties and cities and states keep giving hundreds of millions of dollars to teams to build their stadiums when they could be, they could be paying their teachers. Everyone's always saying, stop paying the baseball players so much, pay the teachers. Well, not paying the baseball players doesn't pay the teachers, but not paying the billionaire team owners to build their stadiums does pay the teachers.
Correct.
Okay. That's where that money comes from. So don't tell me, I want you to build the new stadium for the team, but I don't want you to pay the players so much. That's not how that works.
Nope. Not at all. And yeah, Mark, he is unabashed about where he lies on the political spectrum, I think is the term for it. But that specific article especially is like, hey, this is my opinion. These are the numbers that back up said opinion, and this is the reality that we face. In a reality where we talk about where our tax dollars are going, I think that this is a reality that a lot of baseball and sports fans need to face. It sucks, but we need to talk about it at least. All right, let's go ahead and get to today's Royals reviews. I'm a little preemptive though, Jeremy, because I did fail to mention we are having a guest on our next podcast
to remind
episode.
You, and I forgot.
Fangraphs writer Michael Ballman will be joining us for Sunday's episode. Looking forward to sitting down and just getting not really an outsider perspective, but kind of a 10,000 foot level view on what the Royals did this year and how he expects the offseason to go for them. But that will be coming out next episode. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast, follow us wherever you are getting your podcasts from. Jeremy, do you have a quick review for us today?
Before I get to the review, I do want to let everyone know I am not actively using Twitter anymore.
Yeah.
I gave in and just created a new account over on Blue Sky. I haven't got my old one back. I'm still trying to. We'll see if that actually happens. But you can find me over on Blue Sky at Hakias in the Skyus. So it's Hakias, Hokus, like it always was. INTHE, the Skyus, Skyus. So that you find me over on Blue Sky, and I'm tweeting all kinds of Dragon Age thoughts right now as I play through that game.
Perfect.
But my review for today is going to be what I kind of teased last week or last episode when I was talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, Agatha All Along, which I forgot to review once I finished watching that series. So it's a solid series. I am very weirded out by everyone who keeps telling me it's the best Marvel series or that it's a really good TV show even outside of Marvel. It's not. It's fine. Also, people keep saying Marvel finally remembered what a TV series is supposed to be like instead of just a really long movie. And no, it doesn't do that either. It would work really a lot better if you just watched every episode back to back to back and was like, oh, it's a movie. A really, really long movie. Well, not 9 times about 30 minutes. Yeah, that's still 4.5 hours. That's a really, really long movie.
Yeah, still a long movie.
Yeah, it's fine. I love Catherine Hahn. I love Aubrey Plaza, but like some of the stuff just doesn't make any sense. Like there's this whole thing about how Agatha made up the Witch's Road. Sorry, spoilers. Agatha made up the Witch's Road to like she didn't make it up. Her son made it up. That we have no idea who the father is or why. There's so much we don't know that they're just like, yeah, this is fine. I guess I don't need to go into all those details, but there's so many dangling loose ends that I have no idea if they're ever going to do those. And it was also frustrating because we saw like character beats like the Protection Witch, who finally, like, her whole life's purpose when we meet her has been, I'm cursed, everything sucks, I hate it. She finally gets uncursed and immediately dies.
Yeah.
That's not satisfying as far as watching a character do stuff. And really, honestly, none of the characters were satisfying in this show. Not a single one had a satisfying arc and conclusion. Things just kind of happened. And I loved the characters and the plot was interesting, but it wasn't something that I'm like, oh, I felt like that was foreshadowed really well. And I felt like a great sense of catharsis from that moment. It was just like cool things happened. Lots of fun acting happened. Special effects were cool. And like, it was fine.
Yeah.
The people who say it's great, I do not understand you. I hope you find some actually truly good things to watch.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you have to dig back a little bit deeper chronologically to find some good TV watching, in my opinion. But Agatha,
there's some
was
good
fine.
shows out there. I haven't reviewed it yet, and I'll give it a better review later. But I've been watching Murders in the Building.
Oh, yeah. See,
that's a really solid show.
Yeah, that's a great one. My review is going to be over a book that I am about to finish up. It is called Hell House. Now, if you've heard of the book, you've probably heard of the author, Richard Matheson, who is the same guy who wrote I Am Legend. But
awful movie.
Not as good as the book, I will say. Not as good as the story.
Read the book. I just know that movie made me angry.
Fair, as it should. Hell House is exactly what it is. It's a horror book from 1971 about just a very, very badly haunted house. It's like, I haven't read the Haunting of Hill House book, but I watched the show, and it's like on that similar level. It's very, very violent haunting. I just like the style of writing. There's definitely, it's been more than 50 years since this book was written. The language was much different. How the scenes were set was very, very different. I also like single setting books a lot. Not hey, it has to stay in the same room, but like it stays in the same property. And you get these the scene setting over and over again, and you get to see how it changes and things like that. So Hell House by Richard Matheson. I wouldn't read it late at night, but it is a good one to pick up and read every now and then if you're interested in it. All right, Jeremy.
I'm going to give you a bonus review now because you made me think of a movie I watched once and absolutely loved, and I probably should watch it again to see how I feel about it now. Running Man, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
And I remember going back to read the book The Running Man that the movie was based on, which was actually written by Stephen King under a pen name because it was not traditional Stephen King horror movie, or excuse me, horror book. And so he didn't want people to go read it looking for Stephen King horror stuff. And the movie I remember enjoying quite a bit because it was kind of that classic 80s Schwarzenegger fare of like quippy one-liners and action and all that good stuff. And then I read the book and it was just depressing and awful. And maybe I should reread the book too, because one of the things that was depressing and awful about it was stuff that capitalism had done to the society. So, you know, ruining society with capitalism is a thing that happens in real life now. So, hey, honey, we're just talking about The Running Man, the book by Stephen King that's like game show capitalism ruining lives.
Read that one yet, but now I really want to. Have you read The Institute by him?
That's the only Stephen King book I've ever read because I didn't know it was Stephen King when I read it.
So Institute isn't super scary. I'll give my review. It's actually one of my favorite books ever. It's about kids with like telepathic and telekinetic abilities being kidnapped by the government for experiments, and they fight back, and it's phenomenal, and you will love it.
Okay.
I listened to it on repeat. But I think that's all we have time for today because we have an advanced screening of Wicked to get to.
Get out of here. Go watch your movie.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Until next time, go Royals.